So, a couple different things as far as the order. Do you want to pick for the Bears or not?
No, no.
Okay, so you're going to be the odd teams. You're going to start 1, 3, 5, whatever the case is.
Yep.
Um, do we want to trade the Titans pick away?
So as we pull this up, I don't think so. Um, for a few reasons, and I'll get started because I'm pick number one. I think there's a very few amount of positions in the NFL that are outliers where it does not really matter. When teams are picking first overall, other than the Bears, and they don't take a quarterback, I think there's a few positions that are not dependent on where your team is at in terms of its development, where the coaching staff is at. It's a player that you just have to take because you have to take them. They're going to make an impact and they're going to be a good player. So when I say the Titans, I don't need to necessarily trade, is because if the Titans trade away this year's pick to, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand who would be moving up to take Abdul Carter. I
Um,
don't understand who would be moving up to take Cam Ward, even if they're moving back to the next year to get a first overall pick in a dream scenario like the Bears. You're hoping that you get an Abdul Carter at one overall. That's how I feel about Titans.
I mean, it's quarterback desperation, right? I feel like the only trade that makes sense as of February 4th, 2025, is the Titans trading out to 3 and the Giants taking the quarterback that they so desperately have fallen in love with, right? And for
Correct.
God knows that could be Jackson Dart. And it wouldn't take that
Ha.
much because you're just going from 3 to 1. But I think that I like what you said, and I honestly think that we should do 0 trades. If you're okay with that, just kind of pigeonhole what player fits with the team, slash, this is the player that should go at this rank because of BPA. If you're okay with that, I'm okay with that.
I am okay with that because it takes two to tango, and a lot of teams end up doing some dumbass shit um, in terms of trading, and it makes no sense. I could give you 10 teams that would trade up to 25 to take Jackson Dart at this point in the combine and the draft and the Senior Bowl, and everybody's falling in love with Jackson Dart and Will Howard and all that shit. And you're going to get a bunch of trades into the 20s and into the 30s and all that bullshit, top of the second round to get these mid-ass quarterbacks because there's going to be a run on mid-level quarterbacks. So I'm going to just skip that trade
Yeah.
opportunity and just say BPA.
All right. Well, let's enter the draft. I think that you said that you'd like to start. Yeah, that was going to be another suggestion I have. Or, because, it just gets rid of the overlay. I mean, I'm okay with this. It doesn't matter. But
Perfect. Looks
what what
great.
are what are you thinking as the first overall pick for these Titans then?
There's one player available that is a generational irrelevant of position, irrelevant of where your franchise is as a rebuilding model, I think, and that's Abdul Carter. Like a pass rusher like Micah Parsons would go first overall in most drafts, in redrafts, in any opportunity that you can present to any team that's taking first overall. Micah Parsons was a fart in the wind. Him going 11 was the Cowboys getting lucky as fuck, as the Cowboys usually do. Abdul Carter is the closest thing to Micah Parsons in the NFL right now. He's probably the closest thing to TJ Watt right now. And you just got to take him because he's going to make your team better. So I'm not overthinking this. It's Abdul Carter, and everybody's correct for thinking that.
Okay, let's go with it. Now, this is going to suck. I know we said no trades, and we also are kind of picking for each other, or independently of each other, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if I take a player at 2 that isn't a quarterback, will you promise that you take a quarterback at 3?
Yep.
Okay. Well, to fit the proof is in the pudding concept that I've got with the thumbnail of this video. I've got a certain arrow pointed at a certain number 55 for the certain University of Michigan
Oh,
that
you're such a
has
bitch.
Aaron Donald in it. Now, I love Dane Brugler, right? Dane Brugler is great. I love his analysis. He said something that very much upset me today. He said that he didn't think that Mason Graham was a Hall of Famer, and I strongly disagree with it. I think that Mason Graham has the makeup. He's not an asshole, except he's playing against Ohio State. And I don't know, man. I just think that he's one of the more surefire prospects in this entire draft. And I said this yesterday, I think, but I really genuinely would not be surprised if the first two picks of the 2025 NFL draft are defensive players, and those would have to be Abdul Carter and then Mason Graham.
I agree with your logic, and it makes even more sense if the Browns end up trading Myles Garrett.
Yeah, because now we're building the building blocks, right? Like you select Mason Graham, you've got a high floor Hall of Fame caliber player on your defense after you've already traded away a Hall of Famer, assumedly, and now you've got all these picks and stuff to trade for a quarterback again in any round of any draft in the next 2 years. So
I agree with you in that logic. If Myles Garrett and this Browns team ends up being in a bit of a rebuild, I agree. The only disagreement I have with you is, like I said, with the Browns and how hamstrung they are with how much they're spending in that quarterback room with absolutely zero return. I think the Browns are perfectly poised to get a quarterback because you get a cheap quarterback on 5 years. But I get the logic with Mason Graham. In the event that Myles Garrett gets traded, you may as well tank. You may as well go get fucking Jameis Winston on another 2-year deal. You may as well go get some bum Jacoby Brissett to start there for 2 years and just call it a day. Let Mason Graham develop. And in a year or two, when you can get Arch Manning, you go and package those picks and try to
and
get
hey, if you're the Browns, you can still take Jalen Milroe at 38 overall and realize that he's literally a worse passer of the football than Anthony Richardson, and then just get cut bait. You've got 3-4 first round picks, in the coming years. Like in the scenario, like it's totally fine, man. They can afford to not take a quarterback at second overall in this draft.
I agree, and I think the quarterback class right now is so negligible that even if the Browns ended up trading Myles Garrett for a mid-20s pick and they take Jackson Dart, I wouldn't feel any worse about that than taking Cam Ward. So I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the worst. The Giants, on the other hand, are absolutely fucking hilarious, pathetic. They need a quarterback there just to sell some tickets at this point.
Yeah.
It's one of the most layup, just absolute easy Cam Ward teams I've seen in this whole draft.
Okay.
And the Giants take Cam Ward without skipping a beat.
Yeah. I really like the analysis that I'm hearing from Cam Ward is he's got not the it factor, but he's got like the razzle dazzle to him, but he also plays loose, and that looseness that is, in my opinion, going to translate to the NFL is going to result in a lot of interceptions, especially when we're talking about the Giants. I don't know how many targets you're supposed to get as a number one wide receiver, but whatever number you've got in your head, probably double that for Malik Neighbors. Like that's going to be their game plan, and he's going to throw a lot of interceptions. But maybe the razzle dazzle makes its way to New York, what they need. But I have no faith in Cameron Ward.
Me neither, but I think as a Giants fan with what you have there already, you have no running backs. The only thing you have to sell a ticket is Malik Neighbors, and you need to give Malik Neighbors a quarterback just to fucking toss the ball up and throw 30 touchdowns and 28 interceptions and call it a day and sell some tickets.
Yeah, and I love to break news on Bearskifilm. Karl Harbor here. Once the rookie contract for Malik Neighbors expires, he will be a Washington Redskin. He will be reuniting with his college quarterback. So that is a foregone conclusion if I've ever seen one. So I guess it is my responsibility to select for the New England Patriots. And I'm not an expert, but I did watch the Mike Vrabel introductory press conference. And when he talked about building the trenches, man, oh man, I fucking believed him. At this point, we've already lost two iconic defensive players, the trenches. If we look at the offense, we look at the offensive line situation, the stock of Calvin Banks Jr. is falling fast. I don't think they're going to go the Josh Simmons route. Your offensive guards, Tyler Booker's shooting up the ranks, but he's not good enough to go fourth overall. If we're talking about a high floor player, and this is a player who I genuinely am starting to come around to for the Chicago Bears at 10th. I'm going to sound really stupid in a couple of weeks, a month here, when Will Campbell's a guaranteed top 5 pick. But in this exercise, the way the board has fallen, I don't see Will Campbell making it past the Patriots.
I agree. And I don't know what I don't love Will Campbell, but I don't hate Will Campbell. Super super
Fun fact:
sound technically.
I'm sure you've heard this, but Will Campbell, who plays in the SEC and started as a true freshman since the year of the year of age at 18, he has only given up 2 sacks in 3 years starting in the SEC. That does mean something. And no, I'm not comparing Will Campbell to Joe Alt whatsoever. That is a hyper apples to oranges. But Will Campbell, if he's got, I feel like a parrot, all the stuff that I listened to today. But again,
Skarlinski.
if Mr. Will Campbell can hit the 33-inch wingspan, he's probably a top 5 pick.
Yeah. He screams Peter Skoronsky stability. You can load him in at left guard, left tackle. Drake May is gonna just he'll feel safer, and it just feels good as a Patriots pick. The Patriots winning their game in week 18 sounds real fucking stupid right now. When you see what goes, because I think Mason Graham and Abdul Carter would have been a perfect fit on the Patriots with Mike Vrabel, but hey, that's what you get for winning week 18. So
Hey, Chris Foster, yes, we are doing every pick. So for you guys who are listening who don't already know, we are doing a full 2-round mock draft. And it's a little bit elongated in my opinion to start things off, but it will pick up, we promise. And what we're doing is myself, Karl, is doing the even picks, Dave is doing the odd picks, and we are trying to rotate back and forth, but still, corroborate the story, right? Maybe I need to do a better job of telling you who I pick before I click on them, but I digress.
no, that's all right. I'll try to speed it up a little bit.
It's fine.
Having spoken yesterday to our Jacksonville, insider, and I think with Liam Cohen and his limitations, I think Liam Cohen and Travis Hunter are a match made in heaven. I think Shad Khan are a match made in heaven. I think Travis Hunter makes no sense in the NFL. Liam Cohen makes no sense in the NFL. Shad Khan makes no sense in the NFL. And Jacksonville makes no sense in the NFL. So I feel like that's just an absolute match made in heaven, where Travis Hunter goes to a messy Jacksonville team and just keeps being a messy player. Duval. And he's going to play both sides of the ball. Not well on either side. He's not going to make either side of the ball better. And I think that is a perfect Jacksonville Jaguar in Travis Hunter.
Yeah, fun fact, I do feel strongly that the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Liam Conehead experiment could flame out. And that's definitely a team where if Deion Sanders wanted back into the NFL, maybe he's the head coach the following year, just because his boy Travis Hunter's there.
Florida State, Florida, Jacksonville Jaguars. Makes sense.
Yeah. We're talking about the Raiders here at 6, and we've had one quarterback go. I'm gonna make this interesting because I do feel like we could spin a draft where there's a really epic game of who blinks first regarding the quarterback. But in this scenario, obviously the Giants have blinked. I wouldn't be surprised at this point where the run, quote unquote, of these first round quarterbacks immediately halts here at pick 6, and it's Shedeur Sanders. Does that sound not plausible to you? Like, I'm looking at 2 options for these. Well, 3 options for the Raiders. Because I don't think that they'll feel like they're an edge rusher away. Like, they have Max Crosby. They feel like they can get away with kind of a more edge by committee. Tackle wise, they would consider Will Campbell if he was here. I just don't know if they're considering others. I
I
don't
don't
know,
want to
guys.
push your opinion too hard on this one, but I
I'm
think the
looking at
Raiders
Shedeur
have dealt with.
Sanders.
I think the Raiders have dealt with Aiden O'Connell for long enough.
Yeah, I mean, and just the Shedeur Sanders allure in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Tom Brady will be banging the table for him probably. I think it's Shedeur Sanders here at 6.
So far, 1 through 6, I feel like we might be the most accurate people predicting this draft. I think
The only
this
problem
feels so right.
The only problem I have is just that I feel like the Titans come to a conclusion that they do not want a quarterback. And if they can get out of that, maybe Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders go first overall to the Giants, and then that's it for a long time. And
I
then the
just
Miles
don't know
Garrett
if it'll matter.
situation as well. But yeah, regardless, we're looking at pick 7 here for the Jets, and I think you're up.
Okay. So with the Jets, I think we're accepting the fact that Aaron Rodgers is moving on. And whoever the quarterback is going to end up being, I don't feel like makes too much sense. If you can scroll back up, the mock drafts I've seen is the tight end from Penn State, the baby Gronk. I'm sorry, forgetting his name off the top of my head.
Where's he at? Tyler Warren.
Tyler Warren there, 6'6", inline tight end. They do need a tight end. I don't feel like anybody's going to draft a tight end at 7. However, if anybody is going to do it, it's Woody Johnson and his family of dick-named siblings. I don't know who you're drafting him for, though. If you didn't know that, Karl, by the way, fun fact. Woody
What?
Johnson and his entire family is named after dicks.
That's amazing. I can
It's
also tell
Woody,
you.
it's Richard, it's God, what was it? I think one of the brothers named like Stiffy or something.
That's
Um,
insane.
I'm dead serious. Go Google that shit. The entire name is named after the entire male lineage is named after dicks. I don't know. You don't feel like you need to replace Brees Hall. I don't think they need receiver if Garrett Wilson is leaving, which I do think he is. And Garrett Wilson, I think, is one of the most underrated storylines of the NFL. I think that's probably the best wide receiver that changes teams in the NFL this offseason that nobody really talks about.
Readily available. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying? Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think
agree with you.
so.
I agree with
I
you.
mean, he's probably the best wide receiver that's changing teams in the offseason this year, and nobody's really talking about it. You want to talk about the Cooper Cup of it all? I mean, Garrett Wilson, whoever the fuck he goes to, that makes them – he's their number one wide receiver by a landslide. I'm going to give you a little bit, and Foster kind of took it right out of my mouth. I think we're going with defense here. You're going to back up this defense. The offense is okay. They kept investing in offensive line last year. Their wide receiver room has enough draft capital invested in it. There's Brees Hall. I forget their backup running back, but he was taking some
Allen.
shared snaps. Yep. So I think they're going to go back into defense. I would say it's either Michael Williams from Georgia or Will Johnson, but I think they also invested in pass rush enough with trading for
Hassan
from the Eagles,
Reddick, if
Hassan
he's still
Reddick,
under
and
contract.
I mean, the Jets are just a fucking dumpster fire, man. It's BPA. I wouldn't be surprised by Ashton Genty.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say that. I was hearing chatter about how the great, the iconic, the fantasy football icon Brees Hall hasn't eclipsed 1,000 yards rushing in his career. So
Yeah.
that guy is not as good as we want to think he is. And if ownership gets involved, it's probably Ashton Genty for my money. But
So I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to the Jets for being semi-intelligent and taking a position of need. Other than Sauce Gardner, who did have a major regression, I can't name you another defensive back on their team. And I think Will Johnson
he's lost the sauce tag along with the video clips that have surfaced about him asking women to have sex with him. His name is Ahmed. So
yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and go with Will Johnson from Michigan.
No, we don't do that here. I agree with you, man. I'll try and speed things up, and we've talked about this not ad nauseum, but we've definitely talked about this. You've got potentially the best offensive mind in football, Dave Canales. Why do I say that? Because he's resurfaced the career of one little tiny Bryce Young. They need to get the kid a wide receiver. And they tried to go the emotional route by going into the second round and getting that kid who doesn't speak well from Carolina. I'm sorry, they need something better there. This feels like the location for the first wide receiver in the draft. My money is on Luther Burden being a much better wide receiver in the NFL than Mr. McDonald. But we all know what the Panthers ownership is all about. We all know how that franchise seems to always make the wrong decision. But the decision that I'm going to make for them here is to Toria McDonald out of Mr. Arizona. So
Yeah, I think that's so much simpler than you're giving it credit for. So we can move on from that. Um,
Absolutely.
I think just as simple as what we talked about with like the Titans, I think the Saints are in a full rebuild. It needs to be a position of need that is unaffected by everything else. So it's got to be either an offensive lineman, which is not worth it at this point in the draft at number 9, or it's a trade, which is not allowed right now. So I'm going to go ahead. If you go back to the all over, I think it's Michael Williams from Georgia. I think you keep him local. I think you can basically rebuild with whoever the new coach is, which they haven't even. Thank you, Ravi. Good call, Ravi. I think Michael Williams makes perfect sense for the Saints. I think he's a player you can draft irrelevant of coaching staff, irrelevant of where they are as a franchise, and he's going to be able to sit there for 2 to 3 years while they get better. And then if they're not, you can trade him away and or let him leave in 3 to 4 years. So
Okay. I have no way to refute that, and I totally agree with you. Um, we're gonna be capping
I'm going
off
to
the
warn you right now: don't do it.
Ashton Genty sweepstakes, but I just don't think it's at 10, right? Um, man, I think that Calvin Banks doesn't get past the Saints. I'm sorry, the 49ers. Also, up to this point, I feel like we're pretty accurate, but there's also like it's going to happen probably via trade. I don't think that there's going to be 2 tackles that are taken before the Chicago pick at 10. That's what my gut tells me, and that includes Campbell being the tackle, one of those tackles. Um, am I going to mock Calvin Banks to the Bears at 10? I don't know about that. Um, because he just doesn't seem very inspiring. Is Ty?
Can I
Are
make
we?
a point?
Go
Can I make
ahead.
a point about
Yes,
Kelvin
please.
Banks?
Yes, please.
We alluded to it yesterday. Tyler Booker does just not seem like a scheme fit with anything that Ben Johnson has done historically in 3 years in Detroit. A 350, 55-pound left guard who's just an absolute fucking tank and mauler is not something that makes sense.
I
Now,
mean,
if you
you
look at
you could get him down to 340 to start if you need him to
You
be a little
can.
bit more
I understand that.
athletic.
But if you can, look up the statistics of Kelvin Banks Jr. I believe he's 6'4", like 330. There you go, 324. He just fits the mold much more. He has been mocked as a potential left guard and a top 10 pick. And I think with the Bears and their offensive line need, I think the flexibility is much more of a selling point with the Bears and just finding the 5 best guys rather than pigeonholing a guy like Tyler Booker into one position at left guard, which he could not do otherwise on any other team. I think Kelvin Banks gives you flexibility. I think he gives you replaceability where you can move him out to left tackle next year if you let go of Braxton Jones. I think if he's there at 10, I don't think there's any chance he gets past the Bears. That's just my thoughts in terms of the flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the boring pick, not for what our discussion is, but for the viewers, right? Like we've mocked Calvin Banks already. Um, we mocked him yesterday. We mocked him Saturday, but I agree. Right now, it does seem like the plausible choice. And while I do think that Tyler Booker on the Bears would make sense, I just would hope that that would occur in the second round and not at pick 10. And now it feels like Tyler Booker is not going to make it out of the first round somehow, some way. Um, I watched Calvin Banks hold his own against Mr. Jack Sawyer of Ohio State. He was fine. And once Jack Sawyer switched sides, that's when all hell broke loose. So, would not be happy with a Cameron Williams in a trade down, I can promise you that. Yeah, flexibility in the Chicago Bears, that's the name of the game for them. I won't stall it anymore. Let's take Calvin Banks Jr. You're on the clock here for the 49ers. It just feels like with the 49ers, they're also going to want to tackle.
I agree. They are one injury away from a 34-year-old Trent Williams, from being an absolute irrelevant football team yet again for another year. Their offensive line had some injuries. I don't know if it's that cut and dry in terms of tackles, but it does make sense. However, I think they do need a corner. Will Johnson is gone at this point.
That's
So I can
correct.
see the full. Malachi Starks feels like, to me, a little bit of Kyle Hamilton. If you can click on his profile, I believe he's 6'3". Oh, he's 6'1", 205. So I guess maybe not, especially with. Here's the only other question I have is that Talanoa Hufanga, I believe, is a free agent this year,
Possible. I'm not sure.
um, which can kind of create some problems there. They're not going Edge. They're not going James Pierce. They're not going Ashton Genty unless Kyle
Charvarius
Shanahan's feeling
Ward.
spicy. Does Kyle Shanahan, Carl? This feels like a pull up your crack pipe. This feels like a crackhead Carl rant right here.
Okay.
Does Christian McCaffrey have enough in the tank to maintain this Kyle Shanahan offense?
They're not
And
drafting.
does Ashton
They're
Genty
not. They're not drafting
falling to
Genty.
11?
I watched Isaac Garendo, replicate Walter Payton against the Bears. They can get it done with anyone. I'm going to interject here. Like, it feels tackle, but if you're not wanting tackle, that's fine. I can just promise you it will not be Ashton Genty.
All right, crackhead Carl. Sorry. Scroll down just a little bit on those projections. Yeah, the only thing that makes sense here is somebody like Tyler Booker, or you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and do it. The left tackle, I believe it's Josh Connerly Jr. I think he's gonna be rising up the boards. I think your moves for left tackle and offensive tackle kind of start to bust out here. I think Josh Connerly, he's 47th right now on this website. Wait till Josh Connerly gets taken top 15 and then call me an idiot after. That dude is the best pure left tackle in the draft.
Is this
He's going to
the
be.
are we hate podcasting on J2K? If we told J2K that we'd be projecting Josh Connolly to be drafted ahead of Josh Simmons, J2K's poor heart might just stop.
Um, if it is, so be it. I mean, get a better heart, because I think Josh Connerly is going to be rising up the draft boards quite quickly. I watched him. I think he's the best pure left tackle in the league, or in college right now. I think if you're replacing Trent Williams and kind of future proofing, you can start Josh Connerly at right tackle for a year and then move him over to left tackle in a year.
Yeah, I really don't see that being an issue whatsoever. And if that's what you want to do, we're doing it. Josh
Yeah, I
Connolly.
think he's got the best feet in the draft. He's very much like a Trent Williams. He can pull, he can run traps, he can, kick out, all that stuff. So there you go.
Well,
That didn't take you long.
Yeah, to continue to get your brain juicing, I mean, Ashton Genty to the Cowboys is a foregone conclusion. And if the board falls like this, okay, if the iconic Mason Graham is gone, the iconic Abdul Carter is gone, if Will Campbell is gone, if Will Johnson is gone, if I'm the Bears at 10, does Kevin Warren have the nutsack to talk to Jim Harbaugh and ask to trade down with the Chargers? That would be one hell of a phone call to listen in on. But if I'm the Bears at 10 and the board fell that way, I would love to trade back, give Ashton Genty and his 2,000 all-purpose yards to the Chargers, have them go back into their Super Bowl quote-unquote window, and see what the Bears can do at that point. But if Ashton Genty gets to 12, he will go to Dallas. I would consider that one of the most foregone conclusions, along with the quarterbacks from this draft class. All of them, every single quarterback from this draft class will not get a second contract in the NFL. Boom. I love to embarrass myself, but there we go.
Yeah. I think the Dolphins are going to protect one asset and one asset only moving forward for the next 2 years, and that is Tua's brain. So I'm going to go ahead and say Booker at
If
13
if
is
you said
penciled in.
Malachi Starks, I would have clicked that immediately because that just feels like a stupid Dolphins move. But if you're
It does.
saying Tyler Booker, I can't go wrong with that.
I think Tyler Booker is the easy choice just because I think that um, the pudding that is Tua Tagovailoa's brain needs to be protected at all cost.
Okay. Well, I was gonna do something, but I don't want to embarrass myself any more than I already have today. I love Colson Loveland to the Colts. I'm the even draft picks, right?
Correct.
Great. Well, I'll give you some insight. The Chargers are mad that they weren't able to trade up with the Bears to get Ashton Genty in the scenario. So I will promise you that Colson Loveland will not make it past 22. That is pick 22 unless he goes sooner because of your choice. But in this mock, I do think that the Colts will take a tight end, a dynamic tight end, to try and help out their really bad quarterback. And once they find out that their quarterback is merely a running back, maybe they will still be able to hold on to this tight end and he won't lose all of his stock. But I feel like Tyler Warren to the Colts here at 14 is a really good fit.
I think at this point, the Falcons are BPA, plus the fact that they do not have anybody past, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the former safety from the Bengals, now with the Falcons is...
They've got a hell of a secondary. They've got wow, I just lost his name. I'm sorry. They signed
AJ Terrell.
AJ Terrell's a cornerback. They do have Jesse Bates, who's really good at safety.
Bates, thank you.
But they also have Josh Simmons, I think is his name. I don't know, the safety from Denver.
Jeffrey Simmons.
No. Jeffrey Simmons is a defensive tackle for the Titans.
Oh, you're right.
But they don't need safety help, in my opinion. Even if someone's out of contract, I'm sure they'll bring him
30,
back.
31 years old. So I think there is a potential for there to be a nickelback. I get it. They do also need pass rush help. At this point, Nick Scorton, I have watched not enough film on him, but Todd McShay is absolutely in love with Nick Scorton. I'm not a huge Todd McShay guy, but the things that I've seen from Nick, he is a fucking beast. He is 6'3", 280, a high-ass motor, and I think he is a elite pass rusher. I'd be very happy with the Bears taking him if they fell in love with him. If I'm being honest, I think he's an absolute fucking stud. So I'm just going to project my own wishes on the Falcons and give them Nick Scorton from Texas A&M.
Yeah, I cannot disagree with that whatsoever. We're at pick 15, though, and there was something I wanted to bring up because I watched a good bit of Dane Brugler today in between working, and I had some notes, and I thought that this was something that was interesting. So we talked about Mike Green. I don't know if we're going to get there. I'll throw up Mike Green's kind of little player homage here. He's the guy everyone at the Senior Bowl ran over a guy in one-on-one practices. Everyone fell in love with him. So he's someone who is interesting. And Dane Brugler had him as a top 15 player. But the other player that I was kind of surprised to see that Dane Brugler felt was a top 15 player was... I can't find him. He is in an edge rusher, I believe. Shamar Stewart. Shamar Stewart's the other edge out of Texas A&M. And I watched some film on him, and by film I mean one Twitter compilation cut up that was about 25 plays. This kid he honestly genuinely is an explosive freak, and I don't know if you know anything about him. I think in 3 years of playing college football, he has 3 sacks. Like, this guy cannot fucking finish his plate of food. And we're talking about a top 15 player here. I just didn't know if you had any thoughts or if the chat had any thoughts. This guy, I don't know if he's going to be a player that, supplants Nick Scourton and is one of these, edge rushers that surprises everyone just because he's an athletic freak. But I'd implore you guys watch some film and let us know what you think on him. But this guy, I don't know, bro.
I love Cliff Victoria's honest comment. Fucking love that shit.
Yeah, Aldo's talking about the Bears trading up for Abdul Carter, so it'll be fun. We love Aldo, so yeah. We got to get the pedal to the metal. We get it. Am I the one picking for the Cardinals here? Boy, they need a quarterback so bad, man. You talked about how Marvin Harrison is the 3rd best wide receiver in the class. I feel like that's disrespect, and Marvin Harrison Jr. is the reason why I think that Kyler Murray sucks. Like, I had that stack in fantasy, hyper disappointed. Yeesh. And that quarterback, I thought he was good. I believed in him, but I got let down. As far as our options here, they need an edge, a guard, a wide receiver.
Buda Baker's also 32 years old.
They need a wide receiver. They'll run him into the ground. He's still got tread. I'm not worried about it. This Malachi Starks, I don't know. I got to watch some film on him, I guess. It feels like they just need defense. When I did, for the Bears Country podcast, I was trying to compile the opponent's roster for the week that we played. So we played the Cardinals, and their defense was about as no name as it gets, man.
Mhm.
I don't know. Do you have like a strong preference on one of these edge rushers?
No, Jalen Walker. I'm just familiar with from Tennessee. I know he was projected to be like a top 5 pick last year, going into the way too early mock drafts. So that's my not. Oh no, I'm sorry, not Jalen Walker. It's
Pierce?
James Pierce. Yeah. So I know he's just an elite,
That
like kind of
that's
three
where
four
I
linebacker
was.
pass rusher,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
where
think that's what
he's
fits there.
3-4.
A bit of a 3-4. Yeah, he's 242. He's undersized. So
They play a weird 3-man front. Another team where like they were getting by without playing any defensive linemen. Like it's the Cardinals and the Vikings that have that
yeah.
kind of similar weirdness trait. I like James Pierce here to the Cardinals again. They just need defense, man.
I'm
So
gonna keep this super simple with 17 and the Bengals. They need secondary so fucking bad. It's not even funny. Malachi Starks is just the most obvious Jesse Bates replacement. Nickel corner if you need to. He's a nickel safety, replacing overall Jesse Bates in the back, and so Malachi Starks is just screaming Bengals.
and you don't think that they want to go cornerback like he just Malachi Starks?
Not at all. I think they need a rangy safety nickel guy, a guy that can kind of line up everywhere, be a multi tool on defense. They need so much there that Malachi Starks kind of covers a lot of areas.
Well, I think that the Bengals need to trade up with the Bears to 10 to take Will Johnson in the mock
I
draft that we
agree.
did, and then we can gamble on taking Omarion Hampton at 39th because that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So
Mhm.
Seahawks here at 18. It says edge tackle. It's tackle all day here, right?
Yeah.
Would they be silly enough to take this Cameron Williams idiot?
I think they might be that or the Ohio State Josh Simmons guy.
Yeah, let's go with the Ohio State kid because he seems to be having a meteoric rise. I just don't believe it. But in the same breath, I feel like the Seahawks have a not awful tackle that they could allow Josh Simmons to sit if they needed to. So I like Josh Simmons here.
Yeah, I think it's fine. With Tampa, it just feels like their defense is just getting old as shit. At linebacker, I don't know if corner is necessarily the need here. Um, I think they're gonna go BPA. Siobhan Ravel, I'm not really super familiar with, but Jalen Walker with their older linebacker kind of crew, Jalen Walker is kind of a perfect fit there. He's a rangy, kind of like multi-tool defender. He can blitz, he can drop into coverage. So Jalen Walker on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I like that as well. You talked into it.
Levante David's like 37 years old. Fuck off.
Yeah, and they play a 3-4, right? Like honestly, that scheme's probably going to change once the linebacker and the defensive tackle Vita Vea leave. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
or it'll change once they retire, and their coach is definitely going to change because he's like the iconic on the post. He's the poster child. I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
Buccaneers head coach, poster child for on the hot seat
Raheem
already.
Morris.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Boy, oh boy, what do they need? They need a wide receiver. I won't put too much thought into it. I already said that I feel like Luther Burden is the best wide receiver in the draft. And if the Broncos
Interesting.
were so obliged to have that option available to them with their rookie quarterback who no one fucking believed in, including myself, there you go. Luther Burden to the Broncos there makes a lot of sense to me.
I thought you were going to go a little different route there. I thought you were going to go Colson Loveland there, but
No, Colson Loveland is reserved for the Chargers at 22 unless you think that he's a fit for the Steelers here at 21.
so I've done basic research. I think Matthew Golden is probably my favorite receiver in this entire draft
Is he a
from
fuck up?
Texas.
I can't remember.
No, he reminds me a lot of like a cheap ass Malik Neighbors, 6 foot 195, always open, kind of explosive kid. I think he's a
He's the
perfect
speed though.
combo. I think he's a perfect alternate side of George Pickens. So I think you just go in and you take Matthew Golden here and you just get
And then
another
they've got
receiver
Cooper
for
Cup in
Justin
the
Fields.
slot,
Yep.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Justin Fields just tossing a ball 6 yards ahead of him, and you can try and catch up to it.
How good is Matthew Golden at blocking? I digress. There you go. So,
Not good at
again,
all.
Colson Loveland, reserved for Jim Harbaugh's beloved former University of Michigan superstar. What about the Packers here at 23?
I don't know what they need at this point. I think
Says
corner.
cornerback, edge, wide
I think
receiver,
I was about to
defensive
say
tackle.
corner makes the most sense because I think Jair Alexander has been disappearing for 2 years, and they need some corner to match up with the NFC North.
And
Justin
they would definitely
Jefferson,
be a
Roma
team.
Dunze.
The Packers would definitely be a team that takes a cornerback that is falling and is from a small school. Like, I
Yep.
don't know.
Siobhan Ravel. Yeah. So
You
let's
like it?
pencil in Siobhan Ravel. I like it.
Okay. We're talking about the Vikings here. We're getting to the playoffs. Talking playoffs. Um, boy, oh boy, do they need a cornerback? Isn't Cam Bynum a free agent? I'm sure they'll retain him. It claims that a defensive tackle is a need, but did you know, David, that the Minnesota Vikings played a football game where they only played 4 true defensive linemen, and the most amount of snaps that one of those defensive linemen played was 50% of the snaps? I'm sorry, like 40% of the snaps. I don't think that defensive tackle is a need for this football team. Maybe they would definitely be the team that would take that Starks kid if he was still there because good God, Harrison Smith, that son of a bitch is getting old too. Um, what are we looking at? Oh, I've heard this name a lot. A modern will linebacker. That's when I saw Will in caps, I thought of fucking Brian Flores and his note card of
Hmm.
his 3 play calls. Let's just pencil in Nick Amanwari to them. They lost a football game in Detroit where they gave up a lot of points. They'll feel like they can improve on the secondary. I like Amanwari to them.
I agree. At this point, we know that the only thing the Texans really are looking for is inside line help. Their left
Tyler
tackle is
Booker's
taken
gone, right?
care of, but yeah, Tyler Booker's
Yeah,
gone. So I'm
it
gonna
just
go
hit me like a
Cam
brick
Williams.
fucking wall. Yeah?
Yep, easy penciled in. You can put him in at right tackle. You can probably slide him in at guard.
Well, I figured out why Tyler Booker is being pushed up the draft boards.
Why is that?
He is not making it past Houston.
Absolutely
I
not.
can promise you that. Oh my god, I can't believe it took me that long to figure that out. Cameron Williams, sure, he got absolutely embarrassed by the way. This is going to be a bust out flame pick. They already did that with their quarterback selection a couple years ago as well. So whatever they do in this draft is irrelevant. I say that like a quarter joking. Is it? Am I the one to decide for the Rams here?
Sure
The
are.
wide receivers definitely a need, right? Because they're going to lose Cooper Cup, but they also have the third best wide receiver in the entire NFL. Is a Mecca Abuka a fit here? Yeah, he
Ooh,
is. Yeah, he is. I'm almost going to pencil that in immediately. I'll take a look at the all. If you guys are in chat, you guys know what the draft order is. You can see if you're listening to my voice, we're about to end the first round somewhat. We're in the playoff teams. If you can think of a fit that you guys love, let's hear it. Um, Benjamin Morrison. What do they need again? It says they need quarterback. They already know that. Stafford's just sick of it. Um, it just feels like a Buka, man. Like you're gonna trade away a crafty slot triple crown winner. He's the perfect wide receiver two in the NFL behind the great Puka Nakua.
absolutely.
I love Abuka here. I'm sorry, I love that.
I agree. The Ravens secondary has been mediocre at best. They picked it up halfway through the year, but Marlon Humphrey's not getting any younger. Kyle Hamilton needs a partner to kind of go into that secondary moving forward. Their defensive line is pretty much a, I don't know, free agency, you know, whatever you would call it, like a free agency landslide. So I'm going to go ahead. If you go into the corner, we're going Benjamin Morrison at corner for Baltimore.
Cute little storyline there. Notre Dame teammates probably reuniting with Kyle
Kyle
Hamilton, I
Hamilton, yeah,
believe.
that's a good call.
So, yeah, definitely I could see that happening all day. The Lions, we alluded to this earlier as well. In this exercise, the Lions have not acquired Miles Garrett. And if this player was to be available to them, I think that the Lions would have no issues with taking Mike Green. It just feels like the perfect player to pair with Aiden Hutchinson and the grit and the aggressive nature of their head coach. It just makes too much sense to me, man.
Yep. Washington is kind of in a weird spot where they need young people at every position, and at this point, interior defensive line is probably the most versatile, but which is what they don't need. If you go down, I guess just out of pure what they need and protecting Jalen, little
Look
Jalen.
at look at Ronsky. I think Ronsky was one of the people abusing me in my mock draft video. He said Detroit Lions quarterback is changing his first name to Jack. Jack Goff. That's amazing.
Jack off. That's
Oh, that's
oh
incredible.
Ronsky. That's
Oh.
fantastic. Ronsky, you need to be posted for that. Good job, Ronsky. Just out of pure offensive line need, because I think Washington, once they lost, who was it, Kevin Zeitler or something like that, they fucking absolutely could
No,
collapse.
Sam Cosmi, the iconic
Sam
Sam
Cosmi.
Cosmi. His name reminds me of Cosmix, the place in Naperville. That's just like a spin off of McDonald's. Anyway.
Yeah, so BPA in terms of offensive linemen, I think that's where we're going here. Ahmad Memboom.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a kid that Mr. Dane Brugler had very high remarks on, right? When we're talking, yeah, right here, athletic. That's the word that I'd be looking for in an offensive lineman playing in front of the greatest running back in the NFL, little Jaden Daniels, right? I love you, Jaden. You
Mhm.
gave us our head coach. Thank you. Membo here to the Redskins makes so much sense. The Bills in this exercise have also not acquired Miles Garrett. I would have to imagine, yep, they're in kind of a win now mode, and they have to definitely replace Von Miller. Um, but in the same breath, I mean, this Walter Nolan guy is starting to stick out to me, and he seems, I don't know, it just doesn't, he's not a need for them, right? Um, I mean, their safety play is terrible. Their secondary is just bad too, though. So
I would
like,
argue, other than Ed Oliver, they really just don't have any linemen left.
yeah, and Ed Oliver's like a fringe Hall of Famer. I absolutely adore him. This Jahad Barron, I remember hearing his name going into the season, and he was a lot more highly touted, but something happened for him to be like lower down. Kind of maybe a very cold take, an unpopular take. I feel like I would love Barron on the Bears so that we didn't have to play the experiment anymore with Brisker, but that would be such a waste of a pick. Um, I don't know, man. Do you have any issues with Walter Nolan going here? I mean, he feels like a
I
first
do
round pick
not.
to me.
I don't.
Struggles with consistency. That might be a very high upside pick that the Bills decide to make in their
Let's
Super
be honest.
Bowl.
The Bills are trading up to the mid-20s to take somebody we have no idea who the fuck.
Is that what you just said, Cliff? Nolan is still there. That's what's screaming out to me is Walter Nolan as a first round pick.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, let's go for it, man. Walter Nolan totally makes sense to me. In this exercise, the Eagles have not won the Super Bowl. The script is leaked. What are you thinking for these Eagles at 31?
Scroll down just a little bit because I just don't see that they need anything in particular from a defensive side. I suppose edge. Are you thinking Omari and Hampton? No, I don't
Hold
think so.
on a second. If I could talk you into this pick, this is the athletic freak that the Eagles would just be salivating at.
I
For a,
agree.
it,
Thank you. I'm in love with Shamar Stewart. He's an
I'm
absolute
not.
freak.
I
I
mean,
like him a lot.
I hate watching tape and being told by men who are not involved in the NFL that someone is a future icon when I see zero production. Like I trust you, and if you're telling me he won a rep because his hand was somewhere, I don't fucking see it. All I saw was him getting it again, 2.5 minute cut up, get in the backfield fast, whether that was by design or not by the offense, and then he just gets juked out of his shoes, whether it's by a bad quarterback or a bad running back. But if again, Shamar Stewart is the type of upside player. Yeah, replace Josh Sweat. He's the type of upside player that can sit on the bench and collect
Yeah,
unemployment on the Eagles while developing behind a really good stable of defensive linemen.
agreed.
And then, if again, I made that pick essentially. But Chiefs, they've won the Super Bowl. What do they need? Maybe they need a tight end. Maybe their tight end has retired. These guys, Gunnar Helm would really shock me. Gunnar Helm in the second round, probably. Hold on. Sorry, this is a monster tangent. Is this the brother of Jake Ferguson?
No idea.
No idea. Anyway, I
But
believe
in
it's.
this scenario, I think Chris Willie. I think. I'm sorry, not Chris Williams. Chris defensive
Jones,
tackle.
Jones.
Chris Jones. I was gonna say Chris Jones.
I'm an
Chris Jones.
idiot.
I think he is more than likely going to retire. More as he's as likely to retire as Travis Kelce at this point.
Well, I don't know too much about all these guys. All I can tell you is that while just as much as Chris Jones is a champion, so is Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant is a national fucking champion, but he's definitely not a three tech that would be an apples to oranges, replacement. So what's going on with these other guys? Explosive that immediately screams,
Chris Jones replacement.
well, like a three tech, right? That's what I'm looking
Yeah.
for. Are these guys three techs? Versatile with day two potential.
I don't think 6'3", 327 is exactly a three tech.
I mean, this guy's a bit bigger. He just weighs less.
A little quicker usually.
Well, gentlemen, I don't know if I feel comfortable giving him Kenneth Grant. I mean, it's not a good comparison or a good replacement like to fill in, but they need bodies there too. If he's showing an explosive first step, versatile, I just don't know much about him, but I feel like that would be a fine pick for them. Do you say otherwise?
No, I like it.
Let's go for it, man. All right.